Welcome back, everybody, to MUPS. I'll be honest, I didn't check what episode I last uploaded, so I don't know what episode this is. Um, I have been pretty productive today. I have done quite a bit of recording and some things around the house and some planning. Quite proud of myself, but for some reason in my head, I've been telling myself all day that it's not a productive day unless I get this done. And I don't know why I've done plenty of other recording, editing, and all this other stuff, but it's in my head. It's like you're ready to do another MUPS episode. You gotta do that. And here it is at like 11:44 at night. But here I am. I'm doing it. It's not that I don't want to. It's just I got it all down on paper, and I'm always afraid of how well I can correlate that to drawing and explaining it to someone, and I always feel afraid that I repeat myself when I explain these things, and so I hope you bear with me on that. Um, I just don't know how the tower's going to look. I just made that to try and work on that. Okay, so MUPS. This is kind of an important episode. Um, Here is kind of what's happened to the series ever since the beginning. I came up with the idea of them splitting into three different directions, and I decided, you know what, let's do what the other characters are doing too. Let's view them all, and I kind of came up with this rubric when it came down to planning what's going on. They have all split up down here, and this is team one, this is team two, and this is team three, and more or less they're all going to have about 3 encounters or so, whether it be some sort of dungeon boss fight or a puzzle or, something like that. That was the worst puzzle piece I've ever drawn. And I haven't really come up with a reason as to why they run into some of them, because as I was planning, it almost seemed like, oh, just boss room, boss room, boss room, boss room, and not enough puzzle rooms. And so I tried to go back and fix that a little bit. And I don't even know if that's a bad thing. If it was all boss rooms, it would kind of make sense in a situation where they're trying to ascend a tower on a time limit. Um, that would make total sense actually if they had to go boss after boss like that. Um, but let me tell you what I've come up with. So team one, which is the well, it doesn't help if I put that clock in the way now, does it? Get that out of the way. Team one is the knight, the ranger, and the dual blade user. I was just going with blade for the name. The guy that uses the akimbo weapons. And what we came up with them first. They were the starters to this, and their first encounter was that room with the button in the middle, the key like really high up here in a cage or something, and then a door on the side with lots of little things for monsters to pour in, and it was going to become like a little parkour thing over here for them to try and struggle through to get up to that key, but it wouldn't reach it. And that was their first room, and I'm still quite excited about that one. That one is a lot of fun. And then we have Team 2, which is the like fists gauntlet user, which I deemed the knuckle duster, the elemental sorcerer, and the acrobat type person with the yo-yos, or in the game that idea came from, they were referred to as the jester. And they can either use the big yo-yos or the giant wrecking ball type of item. And what we came up for them was the big, like, cylindrical room with all the little pillars, and it was going to turn into some like water blender type of thing with the water slushing around, and there's a big monster roaming around, and that one took me quite a while to come up with. And then this third one, involves Team 3, which is the blade, which is using the two-handed weapons, which is his like katana or masamure sword. Allows him to deliver insane one-hit type of kills, but leaves him kind of slow on you know, if that skill attack doesn't finish him off, it's kind of flashy, so it kind of leaves him like a sitting duck for a little bit, so that one's dangerous and you don't see it too often. Then you have the healer class, which on the double side, if you flip it over, is a scythe. I think I went over that, but I'm not sure because it kind of came in later. In the game that this was all deriving from. The healer class was called the Ringmaster, and they usually had a stick that was like, well, the little stick staff thingy that they would use. I think I wanted to remember to refer to it as a baton, because that's about what it is. It spins around as they use their healing and things like that. But with the way that I have the classes set up, where every one of them have a one-handed item and a two-handed item, I came up with the idea that the healer class can either do all the healing, or can switch to a different weapon, being a scythe, and that would deal, you know, the general melee damage that a scythe would, but then also curses. So they can't really use healing and curses at the same time. They have to switch between, but the curses is kind of like damage over time or debuffs of some sort to the enemy, and I was thinking about making AoE as well. So that's just in case I didn't actually mention that. That's who that is. And then the third person in that team, and I think this is one of the only teams that has females. No, the team 2, the Jester, I think was going to be female as well. But this was going to be kind of like the frail small girl, and this one was supposed to be kind of like the big sister type of person, using dual wield guns. I still want to refrain from calling them guns, but that's pretty much what they are. They're originally going to start as crossbows, and I'm going to try and design them in such a way that they don't look like, you know, you just forged piece of steel that shoots a bullet kind of thing. I want them to look kind of fantasy-esque kind of guns, and if I can, try and keep them looking like crossbows. I don't really like the idea of gunpowder and bullet in this universe. So then, yeah, this is the third team, and you haven't even heard what's going to be going on for this third team yet, I don't think. I think out of all that I've done so far, I have only filled you in up to these 2 points, which isn't a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. But what if I told you today that we would have this one done, 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 and this one done? That looks a lot better, doesn't it? I like the look of that a lot better as far as progress goes. And so I'm gonna not dive too much into it as well. I'm gonna start with this one down here. The idea of their first encounter, whereas this is a very small room inside the big pillar type of thing. It doesn't take up the whole space of the size, the whole circumference of this tower. It's just one room in there. And this one is like kind of, there is a small dip inside the room, so that still doesn't take up the whole room and show the size of the place. But this room is going to take up the entire circumference of the tower and really give you the idea of the vastness of the size of this tower. And so you're going to have the whole massive circumference as the stage. And on this level, there's going to be a small city, actually. Not really like big metropolis city, but just like a ghost town. There's almost nothing left in there of just small buildings, maybe a 2-story building here and there, but you know, it's very dense, and there's nothing going on anymore. It's very quiet and dead. And they enter into this place, and they don't even know where the exit is. It's pretty dark, and there's going to be some scary monsters of like the kind of floating head nature, say like, I didn't even have a good picture on my paper for this, but you know, some kind of floating head with a eye, probably like one of those little fire eyes that looks around. Keeps a trail behind it as it floats around. And there's going to be many of these kind of patrolling the alleyways of the city, and they are going to be hunting down anyone that comes in. Anything it sees move, pretty much, is dead. These things are terrifying. They are overwhelming, and they attack very quickly and very swiftly, and so you want to stay out of their line of sight. You do not want them to see you. You hide behind the walls, you hold your breath, you wait for them to pass, you do anything you can to make sure that they don't see you. If they do see you, it will attack you on the spot, and it requires pretty overwhelming force to take it out, so you pretty much need everyone to strike at the exact same time as hard as they possibly can to even hope to survive these things. The idea from that kind of came from a few sources. I originally saw someone on Twitter, since I follow these people who do some game development things, who made some floating skulls with an effect behind them. And they were just talking about how they made that effect. It was pretty interesting, and I liked it a lot. It reminded me of two things. There was a game I played a long time ago called Endless Online, and there was a kind of a hell dimension that you could go to that had floating skulls on fire that were absolutely terrifying and would seek you out and hunt you down. But also they reminded me of the, I want to say they're called Gorgons from Destiny 1. It was in the Vault of Glass raid. There was the place called Gorgon's Maze, and it's kind of a ripoff of that, except it's in a city instead of underground caves of these terrifying like harpy things that would just float around real slowly, and it was a lot of fun. Just having you and a team of 6 people having to really quietly sneak around these things, and everyone always said that you could kill them if everyone participated and hit them as hard as possible. I could never do it. It was terrifying. I don't want to make these quite as terrifying. I do want them to have to kill one to find out how hard it is, and then realize like, oh, we need to not do that again. So that's the idea of that. And then amongst the time while they are in here looking around, they're able to go inside the buildings and kind of pillage what's inside. They might find some potions, they might find a little bit of coins here and there, but most of all, they don't really know what they're looking for. They're just looking inside the buildings while hiding from these things. And they will come across a building that has I'm thinking either a trap door or like a special wall. And I wanted the wall, if you look at it from like a top-down view, to be shaped like this. And they'll notice when they're hiding in the room that this thing has a health bar for some reason. And so when they wait for the demon thing to pass, they decide to go ahead and whack at it. And the health bar doesn't really go down, but as they whack at it, the thing like rotates a little bit around a central point and kind of open up. And then on the inside there, they find the exit door. So it's not really a difficult way to open the door, but the door is hidden and it's inside one of the buildings. And, you know, they just have to stay alive while they're searching the buildings. But I don't know. I don't know if I need to give them hints as to what they're looking for or what, but that is basically the idea of what's going on with Team 3. And I am very glad that I got that out of the way. And so now we are done with Tier 1, or Section 1, or Chapter 1, or whatever, and we are on to Chapter 2. Alright, so we are going to start with... I'll be honest, I didn't actually assign these dungeon rooms to a team yet. Let me look at my notes. First one I grab... Oh, that one I wasn't sure about. I'll come back to that one. I literally... I found online, I tried to look up like dungeon ideas, and you can imagine I found many articles for Dungeons and Dragons, which is actually okay. Those are really cool sometimes, and I kind of wish that I was a player of that growing up. Seems like a lot of fun. Bridge. Okay, here's the first one that I grabbed, and it is assigned to Team 3. So I could have just left that up the whole time. So we are talking about Team 3 right here. And this one, I'm going to actually take the draft page away, I think. And this one is quite, I probably could have done that last drawing on a new page. I apologize, but you can imagine, big circle, dark city, then meh. This one, I'm really excited for because it started out by me misreading one of the rooms completely, so it actually kind of became my own idea, and it is actually slightly based off of something I saw in a Minecraft video. There is a dude that I watch on YouTube. There's actually a whole bunch of them. They do a series called Hermitcraft, and one of my favorite ones to watch on there is this dude named Mumbo Jumbo. He does a lot of the redstone, like circuitry type of videos. And there was one that he did. He was just making a mini game, and he built this big room, and it had quite the floor on it. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't exactly remember all the details of like what was in the room, but the main thing was the floor. It was all made out of glass, so you could see underneath it, and there was a bunch of water channels that went around in like a maze type of fashion. And you couldn't get to these water channels, which was the whole point. And he had a armor stand underneath that was sitting in the water, and you had to press buttons along the way, and it would push the armor stand around underwater. You had no access to it other than the buttons to change the water currents around, and your goal was to try and get the armor stand to the other end of the room. And so that was the idea that I kind of based this off of. So Team 3, once they get done with that big city type of place, they will come across a big room. And like I said, I don't remember what Mumbo put in this room in that game. Sometimes it's like, I know I'm not trying hard on these drawings, but it's like, seriously, do a little better. They're going to come across a really big room, and it's going to be kind of eerie because... Does that need to be longer? That needs to be longer, okay. It's going to be really eerie because it's going to be just so empty. You got your like stone bricks along the wall, a few like braziers lighting up the place. And then it's not going to be a fully glass floor, but there is going to be a maze along the floor made out of glass. So your only access to seeing what's going on below is the glass. And so maybe you get the idea here, but it's very hard to draw a maze, especially when you're not really trying. Imagine what you're seeing here scaled up by like 5 times or 4 times or something, It's going to be where if you're standing in one space, seeing the whole thing isn't really something you can do just from that one perspective. It's going to be large enough to where I probably should have halved the depth of these things, so maybe they'd be like this tall, and these things should have been, like this. But I was just trying to fill up space quickly. That's what I was trying to do. But it's going to be a large room with these glass floors, and underneath them is going to be water. There isn't really going to be a flow of them. It's just going to be still water. Maybe in a couple places there could be flowing water, who knows. And how many times am I going to say in this? Oh boy. Okay, so I decided that I have to come up with a theme for this dungeon. And at the end, the boss was going to be that big like clockwork dragon looking dude. I don't know if I put up a picture of him or not, but there's going to be the big dude as the main boss, and he is going to be one that is the race based off of like cogs and gears. He's one of the machinery type of ones. And so that kind of made me decide, okay, maybe all the monsters and stuff inside this this tower have to be themed machinery-wise. And so everyone's going to walk into this room and be really confused because there's nothing in here. I think there's going to be a door at the end, but obviously it's locked. Locked. Yeah, that's a lock. They're all going to kind of spread out. They're going to be wary because of what they just went through. They're kind of terrified. And they see the water underneath them, but they don't really think too much of it just yet because they don't see anything in the room. They're looking out for danger. They see that the door is locked. And then I'm going to have the little healer girl, she's going to notice first and kind of call out to people like, hey, there's something in the water. And so she's going to look down under her feet inside this glass. Her feet or something, I don't know. And there's going to be like a mechanical fish. Let's pretend I can actually draw a fish. I don't know. Sure, let's go with that. It's not going to look like that, I promise. But there is going to be a mechanical fish. A clockwork fish. Beep, 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 beep. And as she walks around the room, she notices that it follows her around. Also not oriented at this angle I want it to be, you know. That. I didn't know how to draw a fish. It's going to be top down, and it's swimming around. And as she walks around the room, it's going to follow her. If she tries to run from like this space to this space, it'll just look at the wall and, you know, get stuck, kind of like an old Minecraft NPC or something where it didn't have like pathfinding on it. It just kind of looked in that direction and didn't realize there was a wall in the way. And so she kind of walks around and is like, oh, it's following me, like, look at this. And everyone kind of comes and looks at her and looks at the fish underneath, and she's walking around and seeing how it can fit in different places. And they all start searching around the room to see what else is in the water. But it's only this one fish, and it decided to look at her. I think the idea was that it was going to follow the first person it saw, and she just happened to be the one to step over it first. And someone finds out that, like, hey, over by the door there is a keyhole under the water, and hey, over here is a key in the water. Hey, that's great. All we have to do is walk the fish around through the maze and find the key and then take it to where it needs to go. Simple enough. But sure enough, as they get the fish to the key, you know, they'll kind of start calming down because they realize they're not in danger. They just got a puzzle here. They're trying to help her out and, you know, figure out which way the puzzle goes. They're scratching their heads, and they get to the fish. They get the fish to the key, and it like grabs onto it with its mouth and is holding the key. Ooh, it's got the key now. But when it does so, it's going to activate something over here. I'm thinking it might move some of the maze around, so it's not going to be the same thing in reverse. But at the same time, I'm also thinking it was probably complicated enough to get there in the first place that they're not going to remember the exact route back. So when they do that, it activates, and then sure enough, monsters start falling down from the ceiling. And I'm thinking I have to add another timer to this. So not only do I don't know where that sentence was going. Part of it is going to be where the girl is having to focus on this kind of on her own, trying to lead this thing around, but she has to like keep her focus on it. She's having to keep watch of where it's going, where the maze is going, while the other two are trying to keep the monsters off her while she's walking around and getting kind of scared. I'm thinking that maybe there's also like a time limit, like maybe the water level underneath is diminishing and getting lower and lower, and so she's having to quickly do it and really cannot help out with the monsters, and they really have to try and help her keep the monsters off her. Something of the sort, a time limit like that, or, you know, I haven't quite come up with the exact thing. It could be like doors closing off. It could be the water level diminishing. It could just be literally a timer on here, and if it fails, it takes the key away and puts it somewhere else or something. And I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. I'm pretty excited about that. And so that covers Well, there we go, draft layer. What's this layer? Oh, okay, it's that. I don't need that anymore. Get that off of here. That covers the fish maze. Yeah, fish maze. So then next, we are not going to do team 3. I'm going to grab that piece of paper again, take another drink, see what this paper is. Ooh, okay. This one's kind of cool. This one is a little bit more taken out of Dungeons and Dragons. This seems like a popular one that people like to use, but I like how it works, and I can see why a lot of people would want to use it, and I try to put my own little spin on it at the end. This is going to be for Team 1, and so over here, and let's get a new layer going. This one should not take quite as long as that last one. So Team 1, we got the Knight, the Archer, and the Akimbo Blade user. This one is kind of calming for them, so they just went ahead and got done with the monster puzzle, and so this should be a nice little break for them. They're going to walk into a room, because you know this is all just going to be based off of rooms. It seems like the easiest way to go. Some rooms will look cooler than others and whatnot. They're going to walk into this room, and there is going to be apparently some vertigo with how I drew that. Pretend that is level. There's going to be lots of stuff in the room. You know, there's like your little vase, there's some tables, there's a statue, maybe bags on the floor. I just kind of want to fill this room with clutter and junk. And obviously the door, or wait, in this one actually there is no door at the end, so that's kind of a cool thing. That makes it nice and confusing for them. And then on one wall is going to be a great big mirror. I don't know if I want it to be upwards or sideways yet. Just make it a circular mirror, I guess. It's kind of like clamped onto the wall. And so they walk in, and they're looking around. They see that there's no danger, and get to breathe a little breath of relief. And they're going to kind of search the area because they can't find a door of where to go to next. And the team, as they're picking up things, looking around, moving things around, one of them comes and looks in the mirror and realizes that this mirror has kind of a reflection of the room. I'm sure people from Dungeons and Dragons already know where this is going. And it's got all the same stuff in the room, except they can't see themselves in the mirror, but they can see the stuff in the room. And at first they're going to be kind of freaked out and be like, whoa, check out this mirror, like I can't see myself in it, what's up with that? And then maybe one of them walks over with something in their hand because they were moving things around, and they realize like, hey, I can see that thing moving, so like it is a mirror, but how come I can't see myself? And as they're scratching their heads looking at it, someone notices like, wait a minute, that table over here that has like a cup on it or like a vase, like over in the reflection, it's not there. And then they kind of turn around and look, and maybe vice versa, I don't know, but they'll grab it. And basically the objective here is to match things in the room to the reflection in the mirror. They want to make sure that it matches, so they have to start moving things around until it looks correct to make the reflection a true reflection. They're going to get done with that, and they're going to come and stand in front of the mirror scratching their heads like, okay, nothing happened, I don't understand, until someone points out to the, like, hey, wait a minute, we're not in the reflection, we have to get out of the way. And so they kind of like stand away from the mirror and stand against the wall where it can't see. And then maybe the lights in the room will kind of change the color, maybe a little noise will happen, but the latches holding onto the mirror is going to let go of it, and it's going to like fall down or roll away. They might try and catch it or just get scared, like, oh, I hope that didn't break, and pick it up and think like, okay, we did something happened, so that was a good thing. And so they pick it up and they start like moving the mirror around, trying to figure out if there's anything else that they've missed. But then as they turn the mirror around and look at the wall where it was already residing, inside the mirror's reflection is going to be like a portal of some sort, but it's not on the actual wall in real life, until one of them goes up to it and just kind of like puts their hand on it and then realize they can move through that wall because the mirror told them that there was a passageway or a portal there. They were able to get through that wall. So that's kind of a fun little puzzle for them. It'll be kind of nice having them scratch their heads and get upset by that. So that's kind of cool. And so this last one, because I told you I was going to get them all done today, these first two sets, is going to, by process of elimination, involve Team 2. This one is kind of interesting because after I went through so many different forms and stuff reading people's puzzles, I actually wasn't able to come up with something that I really liked for this one. And so I thought in my head, like, how come they're able to come up with it so easy? It's just always like a basic thing, like a mirror. How does a mirror work? Oh, find a magical way to make that work. And I was literally standing like in my kitchen, and I got a box fan on the floor, and I was like, okay, a fan. What can I do with a fan? And sure enough, it just clicked right away, and it's like, all right, here's another big room. And the wall of the tower is going to open up. So say that this is the curve of the tower. This is just going to open up completely to the open air outside the tower, and they can see how high off the ground they are. It is absolutely quite terrifying how far below things are and how high they are up in the air. And on the adjacent wall, great big fan. Ooh, that's original. And what's going to go on with this fan, I think inside the room is going to be, it's going to have like a broken up floor where you can walk in certain places, but if you fall down, you don't want to fall down. It's just literally down. You don't want to go down. Down's dark and scary. And on these little platforms, there's going to be some walls that they can hide behind because you know that fan's going to be turning on. And so the fan is going to come on periodically, try to blow them out the building. Their only hope is to hide behind the walls. And there is also going to be some mechanical flying monsters in here. Woo! You can tell that this is the underdeveloped one that was my last idea that I haven't given much thought to yet. So they're going to be annoyed trying to hold on for dear life. These walls might not even be anything substantial. They probably have to actually hold on to it to try not to get blown out the building. And the monsters are going to be like biting at their fingers or just attacking them in general while it's blowing. And they have to make sure to watch their step so that they don't fall down. And I think the fan will like kind of periodically speed up or slow down, so they'll have moments where they can get up and walk around if they're careful, but then they'll just like suddenly go into that like third mode on your ceiling fan that makes you feel like it's going to fly off the wall and kill you. It'll blast even harder to get them out the building. Seriously, no hope of being able to stand out here during that time, kind of thing. And I'm not sure what exactly is going to change the speed of the fan, or if it's just going to alternate on its own. Maybe one of the monsters is going up and messing with it, and so they have to try and deal with that monster but hold on at the same time. And then what else was I going to do in this room? There's something else. I think the idea was that they had to jam the fan so that it couldn't run anymore, or find out what's making it change speed and turn it off. And then the door was simply just going to be behind the fan once they get done with that, so that they can crawl behind the blades and then get out that way. That one was very simple. I only gave it like 15 minutes of thought or so because it was the last one on the list I had to come up with. Um, where's draft? There it is. There it is. And also it was my idea, so you know, other people's ideas are usually better than mine. And I get to click off the pen. I get to set the pen down. And I almost get to wish you a happy new year, but it's one more day to go. So like I said, it was kind of scary at the start of this recording where I was like, all right, you see how I've only gotten 2 of these done? Get ready for 4 more, because I got them done. And I just like sitting here looking at this for the moment. Like, at first I was only going to do 3 of these boxes. I was only going to do Team 1. And then they were going to get to the boss fight. And I was thinking like, oh, maybe I can have the other people show up and just hope that the audience knows who they are. But then I decided, no, I gotta do it. I gotta make all of them. And I'm surprised because of how many moments in this project that I keep thinking like, no, you made it too big again. You were supposed to condense it down into something that you could work with. But you went and made it too big again. And I kind of did. Having like 9 characters, 3 separate sets of stories going on. It's kind of daunting. I did also, I feel like I should mention, I want them all to carry something throughout the dungeon. So somewhere in these boxes they're going to pick up like a token of some sort that they bring to the boss fight that requires all 3 of them to be able to beat that boss. Or at least think that they're going to beat the boss with that. Haven't really fully decided what those tokens are, where they get them at, how they carry them around. I wouldn't mind the idea of some of the columns, the up and down, since I turned the, well, I guess I got a mouse here. The columns, like maybe something that they do in this one changes something for one of these, so like they might hit a wall of some sort until one of these guys gets further or something like that. I also needed to bring up the idea that there are some bad guys that made it through the dungeon ahead of them. They're racing to the boss and they're trying to stop the bad guys from getting to the boss and activating the thing at the top of the tower. I always wondered that in shows when they're chasing someone through a dungeon, like how come they're having to go through all these puzzles if someone just went through it before them? And so I need to remember, and that's why I'm saying it now, to have a moment where the bad guys, so that's even more than 9 characters if I have to come up with the bad guys, we get a clip of them with an item that specifically says like this locks dungeon doors behind you and resets the dungeon, and get some clips of them using that on the doors behind them, saying like this will keep them busy, this will slow them down, and so kind of show that like, oh, you can actually have these terrible items that reset a dungeon room. Yeah. And so, like I said, coming back and looking at this, I made it too daunting of a task. I made it too big, but I think I am splitting it up in a good and healthy kind of way. And I can't believe that I am 2/3 of the way through the main planning of this. I guess if you include the boss room, say like halfway through the planning of this. I'm amazed. So I literally just have to come up with 3 more rooms, and I actually have a clipboard of probably 40 different ideas that I can try and choose from. They're the ones that I didn't choose for this row. I got some kind of neat stuff on there. Things that I put question marks to, like, oh, maybe I could do this one. And it's kind of amazing how many sorts of rooms I can come up with or find online and try and alter to my own content and whatnot. I'm kind of stalling at this point. I don't know what I'm stalling for. I'm always worried that I don't get enough information out there for everybody. I really appreciate everyone staying tuned and supporting me through this, because like I said at the beginning, I have to record these to get myself to do it. And because I know some of you are watching, I feel like I'm letting you down if I'm not putting any progress towards this. And honestly, I can tell you I would not have made it this far if it wasn't for the people watching these videos, because I would have given up on it entirely. And so I'm very appreciative of everyone clicking on these videos. It's keeping me going. And so lastly, I should mention that once I fill up those last 3 boxes and really refine out the boss dungeon at the top, which I'm kind of doing in my head back and forth. I don't really need to talk about it yet because it's kind of all over the place in planning. But once I fill that up, I can literally move on to designing the characters, which isn't too hard. It's just kind of a matter of choosing like how tall they are, fully deciding what gender each person is, and then coming up with like their clothing idea for each one, which also isn't too hard. And then making some monsters for these rooms, and then I get to actually jump into Blender and start making these things. I get to make the characters in Blender, I get to make the monsters, I get to rig them, and then from there I can do storyboarding, and then from there I can do the final product. Like, I can actually think in my head how many steps there are to go. I'm making progress, and I never thought that was going to happen. I appreciate you staying tuned, I really do. And if you have any suggestions, go ahead and let me know what you're thinking. Because it doesn't have to be suggestions. You can just tell me, like, oh, I really like that part, make sure to keep that. I'm really excited about this, I want to see that make it to the final thing. Like, let me know what you're excited about, because, you know, this is all still up in the air. So if there's something you're thinking like, yeah, I can't wait to see him do that, you might want to let me know, because you don't know, I might accidentally take it out not knowing that you're excited for it. I'll stop stalling for now because it is like 12:30. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.